The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between two star systems. It was bigger than most planets and home to millions of beings from across the galaxy. Today, representatives from hundreds of different alien species gathered in the Great Council Chamber for an important meeting. The chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in circles that went up and up like a giant bowl. Each species had their own section with special air, gravity, and temperature controls. Some aliens breathed methane gas, while others needed extreme cold. Some were tiny creatures, no bigger than a human hand, while others were massive beasts. That filled entire platforms. Ambassador Kefler of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the center podium. He was tall and thin with blue-gray skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. His people ruled over 60 star systems and commanded the most powerful military fleet in known space. When he spoke, his voice carried through the chamber with natural authority. "Fellow beings of the Galactic Council," Kefler began, his words translated instantly into hundreds of languages. "Today we discuss the expansion of our great civilization into the Outer Rim territories. These wild spaces have remained untouched for too long. It is time to bring order, law, and progress to these forgotten corners of the galaxy." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Outer Rim was known to contain rich planets full of valuable resources, but it was also home to primitive species that had not yet joined galactic society. Most council members saw expansion as both profitable and necessary. However, Kefler continued, "We have received a strange request from one of these primitive worlds. A species that calls itself humanity has asked us to declare their solar system off limits to expansion." Laughter began to spread through the chamber. The idea that a primitive species would dare to make demands of the mighty Galactic Council seemed absurd to most representatives. "I present to you Dr. Sarah Chun, the human representative, who will explain their request," Kefler said with barely hidden amusement. A small platform descended from the upper levels of the chamber. On it stood a human woman who looked tiny compared to most of the alien beings around her. Dr. Sarah Chun was middle-aged with gray streaks in her black hair and intelligent brown eyes behind simple glasses. She wore a plain blue uniform with no decorations or symbols of rank. As she stepped to the speaking platform, the laughter grew louder. Many of the aliens had never seen a human before. They looked so ordinary, so fragile. Some species in the chamber could survive in the vacuum of space or lift starships with their bare hands. Humans seemed like children, playing at being adults. Dr. Chun waited patiently for the noise to die down. She had expected this reaction. Earth scouts had been watching the galaxy for decades, learning about the various species and their attitudes toward others they considered inferior. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Dr. Chun began in a calm, clear voice, "I come before you today with a simple request. Please declare our solar system, which you call Sol 3, as a protected zone. Do not attempt to conquer, colonize, or occupy any part of our space." The laughter became even louder. Ambassador Kefler raised one of his forearms for silence. "Dr. Chun," he said with a patronizing smile, "surely you understand that your species is not yet ready to join galactic civilization. Your technology is primitive. Your fastest ships would take centuries to travel between star systems. You have barely explored your own solar system, let alone others." Dr. Chun nodded. "What you say about our technology is true from your perspective. We do not have faster-than-light travel like your ships. We have not built massive space stations or conquered other worlds." "Then surely you can see why your request is unreasonable," Kefla replied. "The resources of your solar system could benefit all of galactic civilization. Under our guidance, your people could learn and grow and eventually take their place among the stars." "That is very generous," Dr. Chun said, but we must decline. We wish to remain in our own solar system and develop according to our own path. A massive creature that looked like a walking mountain covered in crystals spoke up from one of the lower sections. Its voice sounded like grinding stones. Little human, you speak as if you have a choice in this matter. Your world will be incorporated into the empire, whether you agree or not. Other voices joined in from around the chamber. Representatives from dozens of species began shouting their opinions. Most seemed to think humanity's request was not just unreasonable, but insulting. How dare a primitive species make demands of us? Their solar system contains rare minerals that the Empire needs. They should be grateful that we are willing to help them advance. Dr. Chun stood quietly in the center of it all, waiting for another chance to speak. She had known this would be the reaction, but Earth's leaders had insisted she try the diplomatic approach first. Ambassador Kethler raised his arms again for silence. Dr. Chun, perhaps you could explain why your people feel they have the right to keep such valuable resources to themselves. What could you possibly offer in exchange for the Empire agreeing to your request? Dr. Chun looked around the chamber, at the hundreds of alien faces staring down at her. Some looked amused, others annoyed, and a few seemed genuinely curious about what she might say. We offer you a warning, she said simply. The chamber fell completely silent for a moment before, erupting in even louder laughter than before. The idea that humans could threaten the mighty Galactic Empire seemed like the funniest joke many of these beings had ever heard. A warning? Kethler asked, wiping tears from his large yellow eyes. What could your primitive species possibly do to threaten us? We have weapons that can crack planets in half. We have ships that can manipulate the gravity of entire star systems. What do you have? Dr. Chun's expression remained calm and serious. We have developed defensive capabilities that make our system extremely dangerous to any invasion force. These defenses are not conventional weapons as you understand them. If you attempt to enter our space with hostile intent, the results will be catastrophic for everyone involved. The laughter died down slightly as some of the more thoughtful representatives began to wonder what the human meant. But most still seemed to think she was bluffing. What kind of defenses? Asked a snake-like being with dozens of arms. Show us your mighty weapons, little human. Dr. Chun shook her head. We will not demonstrate our capabilities unless forced to do so. We prefer peace to war, isolation to conquest. We are asking you nicely to stay away from our solar system. And if we refuse? Kethler asked. Dr. Chun looked directly at him, her brown eyes steady and unafraid. Then you will discover that there are some things in this universe more dangerous than planet-cracking weapons or gravity manipulators. Some powers should not be awakened. The chamber buzzed with confused murmurs. What could this primitive species possibly possess that would make them speak with such confidence? I call for a vote, Kethler announced. All in favor of granting humanity's request to declare their solar system off-limits? Not a single hand, tentacle, or appendage was raised. All opposed. Every representative in the chamber voted against humanity's request. The vote was unanimous. Kethler smiled triumphantly. The decision is made. The Sol 3 system will be incorporated into the Zephyrian Empire within one standard galactic cycle. Dr. Chun, I suggest you return to your world and help your people. Prepare for their new future as part of our great civilization. Dr. Chun gathered her simple belongings and prepared to leave. As she reached the platform that would take her back to her small ship, she turned one last time to address the chamber. We tried to warn you, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. We offered you peace and asked for nothing, but to be left alone. When your fleets arrive at our solar system, remember that we gave you a choice. With those words, she stepped onto the platform and disappeared from view. The representatives continued to chuckle and discuss the amusing audacity of the primitive humans as they moved on to other business. None of them realized they had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. Fleet Admiral Vex Thin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Cosmic Destroyer, and looked out at the most powerful armada ever assembled in galactic history. 3,000 warships stretched out in perfect formation as far as the eye could see. Each ship was a masterpiece of Zephyrian military engineering, capable of destroying entire planets or moving stars from their orbits. The admiral was an impressive figure, even among his own people. He stood nearly 8 feet tall with the typical blue-gray skin of his species, but his was covered in ritual scars that showed his many victories in battle. 4 arms allowed him to operate multiple control systems at once, and his large yellow eyes could see across a much wider spectrum than most species. He had never lost a single battle in 40 years of military service. "Sir, we are approaching the edge of the Sol system," reported his navigation officer. "All ships are in position and ready for combat." Vex then nodded with satisfaction. The journey from Council space had taken 3 months, but it had been worth the wait to assemble such an overwhelming force. The Empire's intelligence division had provided detailed reports about human capabilities, and the Admiral found them laughable. According to the reports, humans still used primitive fusion reactors for power. Their fastest ships could barely reach 1/10 the speed of light. Their weapons were simple kinetic projectiles and crude energy beams that would barely scratch the paint on a Zephyrian cruiser. Most amusing of all, they had never developed artificial gravity or force fields. "Display the tactical analysis of human defenses," Vex then ordered. A holographic image appeared in the center of the bridge, showing the human solar system. The third planet from the star, called Earth by its inhabitants, was highlighted in blue. Scattered around the system were various human installations and outposts. "As you can see, Admiral," explained the intelligence officer, "human presence in their own system is minimal. They have a few orbital platforms around their home world, some mining operations on smaller planets, and what appears to be a research station on their moon." Vex then studied the display with growing confidence. "What about their fleet? Where are their warships?" "That is the strange part, sir. We detect very few ships that could be considered military vessels. Most of their spacecraft appear to be designed for cargo transport or scientific research. Their largest vessel is only about half the size of our smallest fighter craft." The Admiral laughed, a sound like grinding metal that filled the bridge. No wonder that human female spoke so strangely at the council meeting. She must have known. Her people had no real defenses and was trying to bluff us into leaving them alone. Perhaps she hoped we would be foolish enough to believe they actually posed a threat, added the tactical officer. "Some primitive species try to make themselves seem more dangerous than they really are." "A wise strategy," Vex then admitted, "but it will not work against the Zephyrian Empire. We have conquered hundreds of worlds and faced enemies with technology far superior to these humans. There is nothing in this system that could possibly threaten us." The fleet continued moving deeper into the solar system. Vex then had arranged his ships in the classic Zephyrian battle formation called the Storm of Blades. The largest vessels formed the center, armed with planet-cracking weapons that could split a world in half. Medium cruisers spread out in wings on either side, ready to hunt down any enemy ships that tried to escape. Smaller fighter craft swarmed around the edges like angry insects. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the human moon base," reported the communications officer. "Put it on the main screen," Vex then ordered. He was curious to hear what the humans would say when faced with such overwhelming force. Image that appeared showed a simple room with metal walls and basic equipment. A human male in a plain uniform sat at a desk. He looked to be middle-aged with brown hair and tired eyes. Behind him, other humans could be seen working at various control stations. "I am Commander James Mitchell of Luna Base," the human said. Calmly, "You are entering our solar system with what appears to be a hostile fleet. State your intentions." Vex then stepped forward so the human could see him clearly. "I am Fleet Admiral Vex Thin of the Zephyrian Empire. By order of the Galactic Council, your solar system is now property of the Empire. You will surrender immediately and prepare for occupation." Commander Mitchell was quiet for a moment, then shook his head slowly. "We cannot allow that to happen, Admiral. Your representative at the Council was warned about the consequences of entering our space with hostile intent." Warned? Vex then could not contain his amusement. "Commander, you are looking at 3,000 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. Each of my vessels could destroy your entire moon base with a single shot. What possible threat could your primitive species pose to us?" "We tried to settle this peacefully," Mitchell replied. "Dr. Chun made our position very clear to your council. We do not want war, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." "With what?" Vex then demanded. "Our sensors show that you have no significant military vessels, no orbital defense platforms, no weapon systems capable of threatening even our smallest ships. You are completely defenseless." Commander Mitchell looked directly into the camera with an expression of genuine sadness. "Admiral, I am going to say this one more time, as clearly as possible. Leave our solar system immediately. You are warned. If you continue to approach Earth with hostile intent, you will face consequences that your empire cannot imagine." The Admiral's amusement turned to anger. How dare this primitive creature continue to threaten him when faced with such overwhelming force? It was time to show these humans the true power of the Zephyrian Empire. Commander Mitchell, Vexton, said in a voice like ice, "You have exactly 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, I will begin by destroying every human installation in this system, starting with your moon base. After that, I will reduce your home world to burning rubble. Your species will serve as an example to other primitive cultures who think they can defy the Empire." Mitchell looked even sadder than before. "I had hoped you would listen to reason. Our scientists calculated there was a 12% chance you might actually heed our warning and leave peacefully." "Your hour begins now," Vex then said. "Cut the transmission." He turned to his tactical officer. "Begin final approach to the third planet. All weapon systems to full readiness. If these humans want to play games, we will show them what happens to those who mock the Zephyrian Empire." The massive fleet began moving toward Earth. Vex Thin watched the tactical displays as his ships spread out into attack formation. In a few hours, this would all be over. The humans would surrender or be destroyed, and the Empire would claim another solar system for its vast territory. "Sir, we are detecting some unusual energy readings from various points in the system," reported the sensor operator. "What kind of readings?" Vex then asked. "I am not sure, Admiral. The patterns do not match any known technology in our databases. The energy signatures are very faint, almost as if something is being powered up after a long period of dormancy." Vex Thin frowned. "Could they be hidden weapon systems?" "Possible, sir, but if so, they are unlike anything we have encountered before. The energy patterns are strange, almost like they are operating on principles we do not understand." "Irrelevant," the Admiral decided. "Even if the humans have some hidden defenses, they cannot possibly stand against a fleet of this size. Continue the advance." As the Zephyrian Armada moved deeper into the solar system, strange things began happening around the edges of their formation. Some sensors reported brief glimpses of objects that should not exist. Energy readings spiked, and then disappeared. Space itself seemed to shimmer occasionally, like heat waves rising from hot ground. But Admiral Vex then paid no attention to these minor anomalies. His focus was entirely on the blue-green world growing larger in his view screen. Soon, the humans would learn what happened to primitive species who dared to threaten the might of the Zephyrian Empire. He had no idea that everything he thought he knew about warfare was about to become completely useless. Admiral Vex Thin watched his tactical display as the 1-hour deadline approached. The human moon base had gone completely silent after their conversation. No more transmissions, no signs of activity, nothing that suggested they were preparing any kind of defense. It was exactly what he had expected from such a primitive species. "Admiral, 30 seconds until the deadline expires," reported his communications officer. "All ships report ready for combat," added the tactical officer. "Weapon systems are fully charged and targeting solutions are locked onto all human installations." Vex then nodded with satisfaction. In a few moments, this foolish resistance would be over. The humans would either surrender or be destroyed, and the Empire would claim another easy victory. "Time," announced the navigation officer. "Very well," Vex then said. "Open a channel to all ships. Begin the attack." But before he could give the order to fire, something impossible happened. The space around his fleet began to change dot. It started as a subtle shimmer, like looking through water. The stars in the distance seemed to bend and twist slightly. Several officers on the bridge looked up from their stations with confused expressions. "Admiral, I am reading massive energy fluctuations throughout the system," the sensor operator said, his voice rising with concern. "The patterns are unlike anything in our databases." "Source?" Vex then demanded. "I cannot determine a source, sir. The energy appears to be coming from space itself." Suddenly, the shimmer became much more pronounced. Space around the Zephyrian fleet began to fold and twist in ways that hurt to look at. The laws of physics that govern normal reality seemed to be bending like soft metal. "What is happening?" Vex then shouted over the growing alarm sounds from his ship's systems. His answer came from the darkness between stars. Objects began to appear around his fleet, but they were not like any ships he had ever seen. They did not emerge from hyperspace or decloak from behind asteroids. They simply came into existence, as if someone was drawing them into reality with an invisible hand. The human vessels were impossible to describe using normal words. They seemed to be made of materials that should not exist, substances that absorbed light in some places and reflected it strangely in others. Their shapes hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in more dimensions than the eye could process. Some looked like crystals grown in zero gravity, all sharp angles and impossible curves. Others resembled living things, organic shapes that pulsed with inner light. A few appeared to be made of pure energy held together by forces that Zephyrian science could not explain. "Sir, I count at least 50 human vessels," the tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. "But our sensors cannot get accurate readings on them. They appear to exist partially outside normal space-time." "Impossible," Vex then growled. "Number species in the galaxy has technology like that." "Open fire on the nearest human ship," the weapons officer hesitated. "Admiral, our targeting systems cannot lock onto them properly. They seem to phase in and out of existence." "Then fire manually." Vex then roared. A dozen Zephyrian cruisers opened fire with their most powerful weapons. Plasma cannons that could melt through asteroid belts discharged their full energy at the nearest human construct. The beams of superheated matter should have vaporized anything they touched. Instead, something far worse happened. The plasma beams simply stopped existing when they reached the human vessel. Not absorbed, not deflected, but edited out of reality as if they had never been fired at all. "Report," Vex then demanded. "The energy readings show our weapons did fire, Admiral," the tactical officer said in a trembling voice. "But the plasma streams just ended, as if something deleted them from existence." Before anyone could respond, the human vessels began to move. They did not accelerate like normal ships. They simply changed position, appearing in new locations without crossing the space between. One moment a human construct was 1,000 kilometers away. The next, it was directly beside a Zephyrian. Battle cruiser. What happened next would haunt the survivors for the rest of their lives. The human vessel reached out with something that was not quite a weapon and not quite a tool. It touched the Zephyrian ship, and the massive warcraft simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but removed from reality as completely as if it had never been built. The battle cruiser Storm of Victory has been eliminated, reported the sensor operator, his voice barely a whisper. I am reading no debris, no energy signature, no trace that it ever existed. Panic began to spread through the fleet. Captains started sending frantic messages to the flagship, asking for orders, begging to know what was happening. But Admiral Vexthen had no answers to give them. Another human construct approached a group of Zephyrian destroyers. This one looked like a collection of geometric shapes that folded in on themselves in ways that made no sense. As it moved closer to the destroyers, space around the alien ships began to compress. The crews of those ships had only seconds to scream before their vessels were crushed into points, smaller than atoms. The gravity manipulator weapons the Zephyrians were so proud of looked like toys compared to what the humans were doing to space itself. All ships retreat to safe distance. Vex then ordered, but it was already too late. More human vessels appeared throughout his fleet. Some emerged from what looked like tiers in reality itself. Others seemed to unfold from dimensions that existed parallel to normal space. A few simply materialized as if they had been invisible and chose to become visible. The Zephyrian fleet, which had seemed so powerful and unstoppable just minutes before, was being dismantled like a child's toy. Ships that had conquered dozens of star systems were being deleted from existence by weapons that operated on principles completely unknown to galactic science. Admiral, the carrier Endless Glory, reports that space around their position is becoming unstable, the communications officer said. They are experiencing temporal distortions. Time itself appears to be moving at different rates in different parts of their ship. Through the main view screen, Vex then could see the massive carrier beginning to stretch and distort. Parts of the ship aged centuries and seconds, while other sections seemed frozen in time. The crew's final transmission was cut short as the vessel collapsed into itself and disappeared into what looked like a hole in reality. Sir, we have lost over 400 ships in less than 10 minutes, the tactical officer reported. Our weapons have no effect on the human vessels, and our defenses cannot stop their attacks. Vex then stared at the tactical display in horror. Red dots representing destroyed Zephyrian ships were disappearing faster than he could count them. The humans were not just winning the battle. They were rewriting the very nature of warfare itself. A new human construct appeared directly in front of his flagship. This one looked like a star turned inside out, burning with cold fire that seemed to draw light into itself rather than emit it. As it approached, the cosmic destroyer's hull began to age rapidly. Metal that had been forged yesterday became brittle and ancient. All ships full retreat. Vex then screamed into his communicator. Emergency jump to hyperspace. Abandon the mission. But even retreat was not simple against an enemy that could manipulate space and time. Some Zephyrian ships that tried to enter hyperspace found themselves emerging in the same location they had tried to leave. Others discovered that their jump coordinates led them not to safety, but to empty regions of space where the stars had been moved. The human vessels did not pursue the fleeing Zephyrians with conventional chase tactics. Instead, they simply appeared wherever the alien ships tried to go, as if they knew every possible escape route before the aliens chose them. Admiral Vex Finn realized with growing terror that humanity had not been developing starships or conventional weapons during their years of isolation. They had been learning to manipulate the fundamental forces that held the universe together. They fought not with plasma and metal, but with gravity and time and the basic structure of reality itself. "Sir, incoming transmission from one of the human vessels," the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Vexton said, his voice barely a whisper. The image that appeared on screen showed Commander Mitchell again, but this time he was standing in what looked like the command center of one of the impossible human constructs. Behind him, walls of pure energy pulsed with patterns that seemed to respond to his thoughts. "Admiral Vexton," Mitchell said with the same sad expression as before, "we tried to warn you. We begged you to leave our system in peace. Why did you force us to do this?" Vexton could not find words to answer. Everything he had believed about warfare, about technology, about the superiority of the Zephyrian Empire had been shattered in less than 15 minutes. "Leave now," Mitchell continued. "Take your remaining ships and go. Tell your empire what you have seen here. Tell them that humanity asks only to be left alone." The transmission ended, and Admiral Vexton gave the order that would echo through galactic history. "All remaining ships, retreat immediately. Do not engage the humans under any circumstances. We are leaving this system now." As the surviving Zephyrian vessels limped away from Earth, Vexton knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the great chamber, but instead of the usual orderly debates, chaos ruled. Voices shouted in dozens of languages while emergency broadcasts flooded in from across known space. Ambassador Kethler stood at the central podium, but his usual confidence was gone. His blue-gray skin had turned pale, and his forearms shook as he tried to maintain order. The reports coming in from Zephyrian space were impossible to believe, yet they kept arriving from multiple sources. "Fellow beings," Kethler called out, his voice barely carrying over the noise. "Please, we must have order. The situation is far more serious than any of us imagined." Admiral Vexton sat in the special witness section, looking like a broken shell of his former self. His proud military bearing was gone, replaced by the hollow stare of someone who had seen the impossible. Of his original fleet of 3,000 ships, only 600 had made it back to Zephyrian space. The rest had simply ceased to exist. "Admiral," Kethler said, "please tell the Council exactly what happened in the human solar system." Vexton stood slowly, his movements stiff and uncertain. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, forcing the entire chamber to fall silent to hear him. "We entered their system with overwhelming force," he began. 3,000 of our finest warships, armed with planet-cracking weapons and stellar manipulators. The humans appeared defenseless. Their technology seemed centuries behind ours. We expected easy victory." He paused, his large yellow eyes staring at something no one else could see. Then space itself began to change around us. The humans revealed vessels that should not exist, made of materials that defy every law of physics we know. They did not fight us with weapons. They fought us with reality itself. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. Many representatives still found it hard to accept that primitive humanity could defeat the mighty Zephyrian fleet. "How is this possible?" demanded the crystal-covered mountain creature who had mocked Dr. Chun weeks earlier. "No species in the galaxy possesses such technology." "That is what we thought too," Vexton replied. "But we were wrong. The humans have developed along completely different lines than the rest of us. While we built bigger ships and more powerful weapons, they learned to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe." Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red as urgent messages appeared on every display screen in the chamber. "What is happening?" Kepler demanded of his aides. "Sir, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy," one aide replied, his voice shaking with fear. "Every major Zephyrian world is experiencing the same phenomenon simultaneously." "What phenomenon?" Kepler asked, though he was afraid to. "Hear the answer. Their suns are flickering." The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives leaped from their seats, shouting questions and demands for information. The idea that someone could affect stars from thousands of light years away was beyond terrifying. "Show us," Kepler ordered. The main display screen activated, showing a live feed from the Zephyrian homeworld. The massive star that had burned steadily for billions of years was dimming and brightening in a slow, deliberate pattern. As they watched, the star's light dropped to exactly half its normal output, held steady for precisely 1 minute, and returned to full brightness. "By the void," someone whispered. "They are demonstrating that they can reach any star in the galaxy." More reports flooded in from other Zephyrian systems. Every single star was experiencing the same controlled dimming at exactly the same time. The coordination required was impossible by any known technology, yet it was happening before their eyes. "Sir, incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. "The signal is coming from the human solar system, but it is arriving simultaneously at every location in the galaxy." "Put it through," Kepler said, his voice barely steady. The image of Dr. Sarachun appeared on the screen, just as calm and composed as she had been during her original visit to the Council. She stood in what appeared to be a control room with walls made of flowing energy and displays that showed incomprehensible patterns of data. "Members of the Galactic Council," Dr. Chun began, "I hope you now understand why we asked to be left alone." The chamber was completely silent. Even the most arrogant representatives had lost their voices in the face of humanity's demonstration. "For the past 50 years, our scientists have been aware of your civilization," Dr. Chun continued. "We detected your expansion toward our region of space and realized that contact was inevitable. We had a choice to make." She gestured to something off-screen, and new images appeared showing human installations that defied description. Structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, powered by forces that made nuclear fusion look like a candle flame. "We could have followed the same path as most species in the galaxy. We could have focused on building bigger ships, more powerful weapons, expanding outward to claim territory and resources. Instead, we chose a different approach." The images changed to show human scientists working with devices that bent space and time around them. Some experiments involved manipulating gravity on a local scale. Others showed the creation of small artificial dimensions where the laws of physics operated differently. "We realized that the universe itself is far more flexible than most species. Believe," Dr. Chun explained, "matter and energy are just the surface level of reality. Underneath lie forces that can be shaped and directed by those who understand them properly." Ambassador Kepler found his voice. "Dr. Chun, what you have demonstrated today, affecting multiple star systems simultaneously from such distances ... how is this possible?" Dr. Chun smiled sadly. "Distance is a concept that only matters if you are limited to three-dimensional thinking, Ambassador. When you learn to work with higher dimensions, the entire galaxy becomes as small as a single room." A new voice spoke up from the crowd. It was the snake-like being with dozens of arms who had mocked humanity's defenses. "If you possess such power, why do you not use it to conquer the galaxy? You could rule over all of us." "Because we do not want to rule anything," Dr. Chun replied. "We want to be left alone to develop according to our own path. We have no interest in conquest, expansion, or building an empire. We simply want peace." But surely you understand that with such capabilities, other species will fear you, Kefler said. They will see you as a threat that must be eliminated before you decide to use your power against them. Double quotes, Dr. Chun nodded. We have considered this possibility. That is why we are making our capabilities known to the entire galaxy at once. We want everyone to understand that we are not hiding, we are not planning attacks, and we are not interested in expansion. She paused, looking directly at the camera with those same steady brown eyes that had impressed no one during her first visit. We are also demonstrating that any attack against Earth would be extremely unwise. What you saw Admiral Vexthen's fleet experience was just a small sample of our defensive capabilities. We could have destroyed every ship instantly, but we chose to be merciful. The Admiral winced at the memory. He knew she was telling the truth. The human vessels could have eliminated his entire fleet in seconds if they had wanted to. What do you want from us? Kefler asked. The same thing we asked for originally, Dr. Chun replied. Declare our solar system off-limits to all galactic traffic. Allow us to develop in peace without interference. In return, we will not interfere with your civilizations or your expansion into other regions of space. And if someone violates this agreement, asked the crystal mountain creature. Dr. Chun's expression became more serious. Then they will discover that what you witnessed today was nothing compared to what we are truly capable of. We have weapons that could collapse entire star systems, create dimensional rifts that would tear apart local space-time, or simply remove hostile forces from existence on a permanent basis. The chamber was silent for a long moment as the implications sank in. Humanity was offering peace, but they were also making it clear that the alternative would be catastrophic for anyone who opposed them. However, Dr. Chun continued, we prefer cooperation to conflict. Our scientists have made discoveries that could benefit all galactic civilization if shared properly. Medical advances that could extend lifespans, energy sources that could power entire star systems, transportation methods that could make travel between galaxies as simple as walking across a room. You would share such knowledge? Kefler asked in amazement. With species that demonstrate they can be trusted with it, Dr. Chun replied. We are not interested in keeping secrets forever. We simply want to ensure that advanced technology is not used for destructive purposes. She looked around the chamber one final time. The choice is yours, members of the Galactic Council. Peace and cooperation, or continued hostility and the consequences that come with it. We hope you will choose wisely. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in complete silence. Every representative knew they had just witnessed a turning point in galactic history. The age of the Zephyrian Empire's dominance was over. The time of humanity had begun. The Galactic Council remained in emergency session for 3 straight days. Representatives from hundreds of species debated, argued, and planned while reports continued to pour in from across known space. The demonstration of human power had shaken every civilization to its core. Ambassador Kefler had not slept since Dr. Chun's transmission ended. His office was filled with stacks of reports from military analysts, scientists, and intelligence agents, all trying to understand what humanity had become. The conclusions were terrifying. Sir, the final analysis is complete, his chief science advisor reported. She was a thin, insect-like being with compound eyes that could process information faster than most computers. Our best minds have studied the data from Admiral Vexthen's encounter in the stellar manipulations. What did they conclude? Kefler asked, though he dreaded the answer. The humans have somehow learned to manipulate fundamental forces that we barely understand, she replied. Their technology operates on principles that our science says should be impossible. They can affect gravity, time, space, and matter itself on scales ranging from subatomic to galactic. Keffler slumped in his chair. How did we miss this? Our intelligence networks span the galaxy. How could an entire species develop such capabilities without us knowing? Because they develop them in secret, sir. Our analysis suggests they have been working on this technology for at least 50 years, possibly longer. They deliberately kept their true capabilities hidden while appearing to be a primitive species. A communication alert chimed, interrupting their conversation. Keffler-S. Assistant appeared on the screen with an urgent expression. Sir, we have received formal communications from 17 different star systems. They are all requesting immediate protection from the Galactic Council in case humanity decides to expand their territory. Keffler rubbed his forehead with 2 of his 4 hands. The fear was spreading faster than he had expected. Species that had never shown concern about anything were now begging for protection from a threat they did not understand. What about the Zephyrian Empire? He asked. What is their official position? Emperor Zethkal is requesting an emergency meeting with you personally, sir. He wants to discuss reparations. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, which had dominated the galaxy for centuries, was talking about paying reparations to a species they had tried to conquer just days earlier. Meanwhile, in the deepest levels of the Council Station, the most brilliant scientists in galactic civilization were gathered in a secure conference room. They had been working around the clock to understand the implications of humanity's demonstrated abilities. Dr. Vexter, the galaxy's leading expert on stellar physics, stood before a holographic display showing the simultaneous dimming of Zephyrian suns. His reptilian features were drawn with exhaustion and confusion. Colleagues, he began, what we witnessed defies everything we know about the universe. To affect multiple star systems simultaneously from such distances requires technology that operates outside normal spacetime. Could they have hidden installations near each affected system? Asked Dr. Malinus, a brilliant physicist from the crystalline worlds. Impossible, Dr. Vexter replied. Our deep space sensors would have detected any such installations. The energy signatures suggest the manipulations originated from the human solar system itself. An elderly scientist with glowing neural tendrils spoke up. Perhaps they have learned to use quantum entanglement on a macroscopic scale. If they could entangle particles in distant stars with devices in their own system, even that would not explain the precision and coordination we observed, Dr. Vexter interrupted. They controlled the exact timing and intensity of stellar output across dozens of light years. This suggests mastery over forces we have never encountered. Back in the main council chamber, the debate continued. Some representatives argued for immediate military action against humanity before they could become even more dangerous. Others insisted that negotiation was the only safe option. We must strike now while we still have superior numbers, declared General Voxmar of the Warrior. Clans. If we allow them to continue developing these weapons, they may become unstoppable. Did you not see what happened to our most powerful fleet? Countered Senator Alathri of the Trade Federation. They eliminated over 2,000 warships in towns. Minutes. What makes you think a larger attack would fare any better? The debate was interrupted by another urgent communication. This time, the message came directly from Earth. Dr. Sarah Chon appeared on the main screen again, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood representatives of various human governments and scientific organizations. Their simple uniforms and plain appearance seemed almost comical compared to the elaborate costumes and exotic biology of the council members. Members of the Galactic Council, Dr. Chun began, we are aware that our demonstration has caused considerable concern throughout your civilizations. We wish to address these concerns directly. Ambassador Kethler stepped forward. Dr. Chun, the Council appreciates your willingness to communicate. However, Many of our member species are now terrified that humanity will use these terrible weapons. Against them, we understand their fear, Dr. Chun replied. That is why we are prepared to make a formal proposal that should address everyone's concerns. She gestured to one of her companions, an elderly human male with white hair and kind eyes. This is Dr. Robert Harrison, our chief diplomatic advisor. He will explain our offer. Dr. Harrison stepped forward and spoke in a gentle voice that somehow carried clearly through the vast chamber. Honorable beings of the Galactic Council, humanity offers the following agreement. We propose the creation of Council Decree 2847, which will establish clear guidelines for interaction between humanity and all other galactic civilizations. A holographic document appeared above the chamber, written in hundreds of different languages. Simultaneously, the terms were surprisingly simple and generous. First, Dr. Harrison continued, Earth's solar system will be declared restricted zone. No ships from any species may approach within 50 light years without explicit permission from Earth's government. Murmurs of relief rippled through the chamber. Many representatives had feared humanity would demand much larger territories. Second, humanity commits to never using our advanced defensive capabilities in an aggressive manner against any galactic civilization, provided they respect our territorial boundaries. Third, humanity offers to share certain non-military technologies with Council member species who demonstrate peaceful intentions and responsible use of advanced science. The chamber erupted in excited discussion. The idea that humanity might share their incredible discoveries was beyond what anyone had hoped for. Fourth, Dr. Harrison continued when the noise died down, humanity requests formal recognition as a sovereign species with the right to develop according to our own path, free from interference or colonization attempts. And finally, humanity offers to serve as mediators in any galactic conflicts where our unique capabilities might help prevent unnecessary destruction. Ambassador Kethler studied the proposed decree carefully. Dr. Harrison, these terms seem remarkably generous, given your demonstrated superiority in defensive capabilities. Why are you offering to share your technology? Dr. Chun stepped forward to answer. Because isolation was never our goal, Ambassador. We wanted peace, not permanent separation. Our scientists have made discoveries that could benefit all intelligent life in the galaxy. Medical treatments that could extend life spans by centuries. Energy sources that could eliminate scarcity. Transportation methods that could connect distant civilizations. However, Dr. Harrison added, we will only share these advances with species that prove they can use them responsibly. We have no desire to give weapons of mass destruction to civilizations that might use them for conquest. What about the Zephyrian Empire? Asked the Crystal Mountain creature. They attacked your system with obvious intent to conquer. What consequences will they face? Dr. Chun's expression became more serious. The Zephyrian Empire will pay reparations for the resources and time lost due to their unprovoked attack. However, we are not interested in revenge or punishment beyond that. We hope they will learn from this experience. Emperor Zethkal himself stood up in the Zephyrian section. The once proud ruler looked haggard and defeated. The Zephyrian Empire formally accepts responsibility for our actions and agrees to pay whatever reparations Earth deems appropriate. We also pledge never again to threaten human territory. The vote on Council Decree 2847 was not even close. Every single representative voted in favor of the human proposal. Even species that had initially called for war against humanity recognized that cooperation was their only realistic option. Ambassador Kethler stood at the central podium to make the formal announcement. By unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, Decree 2847 is hereby adopted. Earth's solar system is declared a restricted zone, and humanity is formally recognized as a sovereign species with full rights and protections. As the council session ended, representatives began making plans to establish diplomatic contact with Earth. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and scientific cooperation programs were discussed with